Yo, what's up YouTube? It's your boy Zach Lesage here, and we are back here with a deck profile video. It's going to be an in real life deck profile video, and we are actually getting inspired by one of our patron GX members, gyrosean. So really appreciate the suggestion. We really appreciate the support that you showed. If any of you want to see your suggestions out on our channel, consider becoming a patron GX member by going to patreon.com/rarecandytcg. We put all of that effort and all of the proceeds back into our channel to deliver more and more amazing content, and sometimes the suggestions just come out here and you'll see them yourself. We do the best that we can to listen to our fan base. We really appreciate it, so thanks so much, Sean. Jumping into this one, we are going to be building a spooky ghost deck, or showcasing a spooky ghost deck that I already built, and it's going to be Polteageist. So let's lay this out, and I'll explain it as we go on. So here we have 4 copies of Sinistea. Sinistea is one of the new Pokemon, and it's absolutely one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. So when I saw this Pokemon released, I was so stoked because I'm like, it's a haunted teacup. So it's a little bit weird that you're like, yo, Zach, you're kind of this tough guy with like tattoos. Why do you like the haunted teacup Pokemon? And I'm like, okay, it's for really shallow reasons. It's because there's an authentic form and a non-authentic form. So for me, as a little bit of a streetwear hype beast, I really appreciate having an authentic Pokemon, to kind of air quote it there. So it's kind of cool. Little bit low on the HP for this one. It's chilling at 30 HP. So it could get knocked out something similar, like, or simple like Baby Blacephalon or Spell Tag or any other kind of spread deck. So maybe a Mew would be ideal in this deck if that became an issue. It's only attack Tea time. Both players draw 2 cards. And that's in order to get it prepped up for its evolution, Polteageist. I love the T pun there. It's really funny. So we got 4 copies there. It's going to be a simple evolution into this Pokemon. Again, its first attack, Tea time, so both players can draw 2 cards. But its second attack is doing 50 times for the amount of trainer cards that we have that our opponent has in their hand. So we can hit them quite hard with that type of information. Let's say if they have a 7-card hand and got 5, we're swinging for 250 for relatively low attack costs. Again, really low on the HP for this Pokemon, chilling at 60 HP. So do keep that in mind when you are playing around with this card, that these Pokemon are not around to last. They're not trying to last forever. They're trying to do that big damage, similar to other single prize card decks like Malamar Giratina or Baby Blacephalon. In order to make the deck consistent, we have 4 copies of Jirachi. This is so that we could use Stellar Wish, and we have a pivot Pokemon each turn after our Pokemon get knocked out. So very similar to a standard Malamar deck. Our Pokemon that's expected to get knocked out gets knocked out, and then we free retreat, or then we send up a Jirachi, free retreat it back with a way like an escape board or a switch or something, and then we attack again. So Jirachi's there just more as a consistency crutch for us. Here we got some of the tech cards available in the deck. We got 1 copy of Blacephalon. I figure with almost any psychic deck, I like this card, and even in non-psychic decks, I like this card. Fireworks Bomb is just a great way to do extra damage, spreading 4 damage counters or spreading 12 damage counters, however you like. So it seems like a nice complementary Pokemon. Maybe you didn't do enough damage with one of your earlier attacks, and you need to just do that extra little ping damage. Or maybe your opponent, you could snipe their whole board away. They got a bunch of Lily's Pokedolls, or anything. It's a very versatile card, and just spreading 12 damage counters can be huge. Got 1 Ditto, so this allows us to evolve our Pokemon. There is another Stage 1 Pokemon in this deck, so I'll keep that secret for right now. But it just allows us to evolve our Pokemon relatively easily, changing up whether we want to evolve into a Polteageist or into something else. Decided to add in a copy of Gengar Mimikyu here. So very similar Pokemon to Polteageist in terms of attack. It's Poltergeist attack, not to be confused with Polteageist, the Pokemon. It's the same thing, 50 for each trainer card your opponent has in their hands. It just has more HP, so it's a little bit of a bigger Pokemon. Sometimes you need to withstand a blow. This is a great 6th Pokemon to send up at the end, so your opponent has to effectively draw 8 prize cards in a game. It's GX attack, Whorehouse GX, with there not being very many GX attacks in, well, 0 GX attacks with the new V and V Max Pokemon. This card allows your deck that wouldn't have a GX attack to have one. Whorehouse GX, your opponent can't play any cards from their hand, and if you complete the full plus side effect of it, you can make your opponent draw until they have 7 in their hands, and they still can't play any cards. So it's a great way to effectively bounce between attackers and to hit for that big knockout out of nowhere. And the last cards that we have in this deck are our line of Inkay, which is just evolving into Malamar, and Malamar, which is used as a way to power up our Polteageist. So that's what the Ditto could evolve into a Malamar, or it could evolve into a Polteageist, and that will allow this deck to get set up. So you just want to Jirachi, send up Jirachi, get the energy back with Malamar, attack, attach, and then attack. So that's what we got going on for that. Moving on to the stadium cards here, we have a couple copies of Lavender Town. So Lavender Town is a pretty cool concept that we have in this deck. It's just going to be doing looking at your opponent's hand. Really, it's an underutilized card in a lot of cases, but here it seems pretty strong to just peep in your opponent's hand and be like, huh, they have enough trainers, I'm going to attack them. Or you could see exactly how many they have, and then you could use other cards that we have in this deck to kind of manipulate the amount of trainers that they have in their hands. Got a copy of Viridian Forest. This to discard psychic energies into our discard pile and search things out so that we could power up our Pokemon effectively, similar to most other Malamar decks. Then we have 4 copies of Professor Elm's Lecture. This is a great card to play in this deck, and the reason why it's a great card to play in this deck is because Sinistea and Polteageist both have 60 or less HP. So does Ditto, so does Inkay. So if we play one of these, we can get set up as quickly as possible. So it's really nice there. Kind of a weird card that we added into this deck after Eric and I discussed it a little bit was Blaine's Quiz Show, or is Blaine's Quiz Show. This allows us to put our opponent in an awkward spot. So I'll read the card text because I know it's not a very common card. You put a Pokemon card from your hands face down, and you tell your opponent the name of an attack. So the way that we do it is, let's say we had a Sinistea in our hands. We'd be like, okay, so this is our hands. We're going to pretend this is our hands, and we're going to put it down, and we're going to be like, it has tea time. So our opponent's going to be like, they're going to decide whether they want to accurately guess this or not. They could be like, oh, it's Jirachi. And you're like, no, it's Sinistea. And then they're going to draw 4. Then you're going to draw 4 cards. However, unknowingly, your opponent might try to guess it. And they're going to be like, oh, it's Sinistea. And you're going to be like, yes, it is. You draw 4 cards. So that's going to allow us to power up our attacks so they could potentially draw into more trainer cards. So it's kind of a double-edged sword for your opponent, where they want to allow you to draw 4 cards, or you want to allow them to draw 4 cards. And both Sinistea and Polteageist have the tea time attack. So even if your opponent's accurately trying to guess, you could throw them off with the different attack names there. So really interesting concept that we have added into this deck, and it makes it a little bit more fun. This deck is a little, I'd say, underrated, or it's going to be underrepresented. It doesn't seem like there's that many cards that we could have into this deck to kind of complete the things. So Blaine's Quiz Show is a nice niche that allows this deck to be pretty fun. Cynthia, I don't want to go over Cynthia too long because it's just a simple shuffle and draw supporter card. So shuffle your hand into your deck, then draw 6 cards. So pretty awesome here. Sometimes we don't want to discard anything. Then we got 2 copies of Marnie. So this is another way that we can get our opponent to draw some cards if we don't want them to kind of have if they're playing around our attacks. So each player, they shuffle their hands and then place them at the bottom of their deck. So let's say if they played their hand down to 0 trainer cards, we could actually force our opponent into putting all those 0 trainer cards into their deck and then drawing into trainer cards, since their deck likely has a higher percentage of having them. think it's a really cool effect here. Might actually want to play it over the Cynthias just to make this deck a little bit more heavy hitting. Another way to do some extra damage to our opponents are the 4 copies of Surprise Box that this deck plays. So you could put a card from your opponent's discard pile into their hands, and it's namely going to be trainer cards, so you could attack with your Polteageist for some more damage. So that's going to be pretty nice there. Then, just to make our deck a little bit more consistent, we have 4 copies of Mysterious Treasure. This will allow our opponents, or will allow us to just search out our Pokemon. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 Pokemon that can search out. So it's pretty cool there that we could search out a majority of our Pokemon for relatively cheap. Then we got Pokemon Communication. We got 3 copies of this. So that allows us to just put a Pokemon back. With 18 Pokemon, I believe, 4, 8, 12, 19 Pokemon that we have here. It allows us to kind of get the Pokemon that we want when we want them. We're likely going to have Pokemon in our hands. And here we got a couple copies of Switch. Switch will allow us just to get out of whatever situation that we are currently in. Whether we want to get a Jirachi out of the active position, or we're trying to save a Gengar Mimikyu, putting it to the bench. It's a pretty cool way to just get out of the active position. It's a really basic card that's seen play for a while now. And then we got a copy of Lana's Fishing Rod, so getting back one of these Pokemon if we need to. And for all of our tool cards that we play. So these are the tools we play. We got the spell tags. So if our opponent knocks out our Pokemon with a low amount of HP, or any of our psychic Pokemon, that is, they will take 4 damage counters. You can place them however you like, allowing you to do extra damage that you couldn't do with the attacks, or focusing on knocking out 2 Pokemon at once. Then we got 2 copies of Escape Board here. So Escape Board allowing your Pokemon to retreat for a little bit less, which is kind of cool. And it works really well with Jirachi. Then we got our energies here just to fulfill our attacks. So 6, and then 1 recycle energy that we have there. So this is what we got going on for the full list. Seems pretty fun here. Maybe not the most competitive deck that we've ever featured on this channel, but you want to know what? I've had a lot of fun building this deck and working on the concept. So feel free to look at this whole list, try it out yourself. The one change that I'd like to make is probably changing the Cynthias to Marnies, and then kind of just like surveying how the Blaine's quiz show is going to work, especially if our opponent doesn't really want to participate in the fun or potentially their demise here. Beyond that, I think this concept does have some merit to it. Surprising your opponent with a bunch of cards like Blaine's quiz show, Surprise Box, and Polteageist that they might not have seen before. They might make some mistakes along the way. If you have a Sword and Shield League Challenge or League Night coming up, totally would recommend this deck. If you're on your way to Oceania International Championships, I'd put a lot more testing into this deck before you decide to take it. Unless you're just going strictly for fun, in that case, this deck is a bunch of fun to play. We did have our testing ground video. You could see exactly what this deck looks like in action. If you got a chance, go see that. If you're looking to support this channel, consider liking this video. You could subscribe to our channel so you can know when our newest videos are coming out. Like I already explained at the beginning of the video, we have our Patreon. You go to patreon.com/rarecandytcg. Or if you want to pick up some cool merch, you can go to rarecandytcg.com. For me, I'm Zach Lesage. You can follow me on my Twitter at ZLesagePokemon. Thanks so much and have yourself a great one.